The dust swirled around her ankles as Rebecca Stone stepped off the train in Tombstone, Arizona territory, her hand instinctively moving to the leather satchel pressed against her ribs, knowing that inside lay a document that could destroy 3 lives or save one. It was August 1881, and the sun beat down mercilessly on the crowded platform. Men in dusty work clothes jostled past her, their voices loud and rough. Women in proper traveling clothes fanned themselves against the oppressive heat. Rebecca stood still for a moment, her green eyes scanning the unfamiliar town, trying to steady her breathing. The journey from Philadelphia had taken nearly 2 weeks, and every mile had felt like a step further away from safety and deeper into uncertainty. She wore a navy traveling dress that had seen better days, and her dark auburn hair was pinned carefully beneath a simple straw hat. At 21 years old, she looked like any other young woman seeking a fresh start in the Arizona territory. But the weight of the satchel against her side reminded her that she was nothing like the other hopeful souls disembarking from the train. "Need help with your trunk, miss?" A young porter appeared at her elbow, his face eager. "Yes, please," Rebecca said, her voice soft but steady. She pointed to the worn leather trunk being unloaded from the baggage car. "That one there, with the brass corners." As the porter went to retrieve it, Rebecca felt the hair on the back of her neck prickle with awareness. Someone was watching her. She turned slowly, her hand tightening on her satchel. A man stood leaning against a wooden post about 20 feet away. He wore dusty brown trousers, scuffed boots, and a light blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned forearms. A weathered hat sat low on his head, shading his face, but she could see his eyes clearly. They were an unusual shade of blue-gray, like storm clouds, and they were fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. He pushed away from the post and walked toward her with an easy, confident stride. As he drew closer, Rebecca could see he was probably in his mid-20s, with sandy brown hair that curled slightly at his collar, and a strong jawline shadowed with a few days' worth of stubble. There was something both dangerous and gentle about him, an odd combination that immediately put her on edge. "Afternoon, miss," he said, touching the brim of his hat. His voice was deep and warm with a slight Texas drawl. "Name is Benjamin Anders. I could not help but notice you look a bit lost." Rebecca straightened her spine, lifting her chin. "I am perfectly capable of finding my way, thank you, Mr. Anders." Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, perhaps. "I do not doubt that for a second, but Tombstone can be rough on newcomers, especially ladies traveling alone." "Are you meeting someone?" She hesitated. The truth was she had nowhere to go and no one waiting for her. Her plan had been to find a boarding house and then seek employment, but admitting that to a stranger seemed unwise. "I have arrangements," she said vaguely. Benjamin studied her for a long moment, and Rebecca had the unsettling feeling that he could see right through her careful deflection. "The Goodwin boarding house is on 4th Street, he said finally. "Mrs. Goodwin is particular about her guests, but she is fair and honest. Tell her Ben Anders sent you. She will give you a good rate." "Why would you help me?" Rebecca asked, suspicion sharpening her voice. In her experience, men rarely offered help without expecting something in return. His expression shifted, becoming more serious. "Because you look like someone running from something, and I reckon you are scared half to death, even though you are doing a fine job of hiding it. Whatever secret you are carrying, miss, you should know that secrets are safe with me." The words hit Rebecca like a physical blow. She took an involuntary step back, her face paling. "I have no idea what you are talking about." "Sure you do not," Benjamin said gently. "Look, I am not asking you to tell me anything. I am just saying that if you need help, there are good people in this town." And if you ever need someone to talk to who knows how to keep their mouth shut, I am usually at the Silver Star Saloon in the evenings or at the Anders Ranch during the day." The porter returned with her trunk, and Rebecca fumbled in her small purse for a coin. Benjamin waved the boy off and handed him $25 himself. "I can pay my own way," Rebecca protested. "I am sure you can," Benjamin replied. "Consider it a welcome to Tombstone." He gestured down the dusty street. "4th Street is that way. Would you like me to help carry your trunk?" Every instinct told Rebecca to refuse, to maintain her distance from this perceptive stranger. But the trunk was heavy, and she was exhausted from the journey, and there was something in Benjamin Anders' steady gaze that made her want to trust him, even though she knew better. "Just to the boarding house," she said finally. Benjamin's face broke into a smile that transformed his features, making him look younger and almost boyish. "Just to the boarding house," he agreed. He lifted her trunk easily onto one shoulder and waited for her to lead the way. Rebecca clutched her satchel close and started walking, acutely aware of Benjamin beside her. The street was busy with afternoon traffic. Wagons rattled past, kicking up dust. Men called out to each other from storefronts. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. "You picked an interesting time to come to Tombstone," Benjamin said conversationally. "Town is growing fast. Silver mining has brought in all sorts." "Good sorts or bad sorts?" Rebecca asked, unable to help her curiosity. "Both," Benjamin admitted. "There are honest miners and businessmen trying to make an honest living. Then there are the outlaws and troublemakers. The Earp brothers do their best to keep order, but it is not always enough." Rebecca had read about the Earp brothers in the Philadelphia newspapers. Wyatt Earp and his brothers were lawmen, though the stories painted them as controversial figures, neither purely heroes nor villains. "And which sort are you, Mr. Anders?" Benjamin laughed, a rich sound that made something warm unfurl in Rebecca's chest despite herself. "I suppose that depends on who you ask. I run a ranch with my brother about 10 miles outside of town. We raise cattle and horses, try to stay out of trouble. Some people think ranchers are too rough. Others think we are the backbone of this territory. What do you think you are?" He considered the question seriously. "I think I am a man trying to build something lasting in a place that feels temporary. Most people come to Tombstone to get rich quick and leave. I want to stay. I want to turn this wild territory into a proper home." There was something in his voice that resonated with Rebecca. She understood the desire for a real home, a place to belong. She had left Philadelphia precisely because she no longer had that, because the home she had known had been destroyed by lies and betrayal. They turned onto 4th Street, and Benjamin pointed to a 2-story wooden structure painted white with green shutters. "That is the Goodwin boarding house. Mrs. Goodwin is a widow, lost her husband in a mining accident 3 years back. She is good people." He set Rebecca's trunk down on the porch and stepped back, giving her space. "Welcome to Tombstone, miss." "Stone," Rebecca supplied after a brief hesitation. "Rebecca Stone." "Miss Stone," Benjamin repeated, as if committing it to memory. He touched his hat again. "I hope Tombstone treats you kindly. And remember what I said about secrets. Sometimes carrying them alone is heavier than sharing the burden." Before Rebecca could respond, he turned and walked away, his long strides eating up the dusty street. She watched him go, confused by the mix of feelings swirling through her. Relief that he was gone, disappointment at the same thing, curiosity about why he had helped her, fear that he had seen too much. Rebecca shook herself mentally and knocked on the boarding house door. A moment later, it opened to reveal a plump woman in her 40s with graying brown hair pulled back in a practical bun. She had a kind face marked by lines of hard work and grief. "Yes?" the woman asked. "Mrs. Goodwin." My name is Rebecca Stone. I just arrived in Tombstone and I am looking for a room. Benjamin Anders suggested I speak with you. Mrs. Goodwin's expression softened immediately. Ben sent you. Well, any friend of Ben Anders is welcome here. Come in, dear, come in. You look exhausted. Let me help you with that trunk. The interior of the boarding house was simple but clean. Lace curtains hung at the windows, and the furniture, though worn, was well maintained. The smell of fresh bread wafted from somewhere in the back. I have a room on the second floor, Mrs. Goodwin said, leading Rebecca up a narrow staircase. It is small, but it has a good window and catches the breeze in the evening. $3 a week includes 2 meals a day, breakfast and supper. You will share the washroom with 2 other ladies, both school teachers, quiet, respectable women. That sounds perfect, Rebecca said. The room was indeed small, with space for only a narrow bed, a dresser, a washstand, and a single chair. But the window overlooked the street, and sunlight streamed through the thin curtains. After weeks of travel and months of uncertainty before that, it looked like heaven. You rest up, dear, Mrs. Goodwin said. Supper is at 6. I will have one of the girls bring up some water so you can wash. We are informal here, but I do ask that my boarders conduct themselves with propriety. No men above the first floor, no drinking in the rooms, and respectful behavior at all times. Of course, Rebecca agreed. After Mrs. Goodwin left, Rebecca closed the door and leaned against it, her eyes falling shut. For the first time in 2 weeks, she was alone in a private space. The relief was overwhelming. She moved to the bed and sat down, carefully placing her satchel beside her. Her fingers traced the outline of the document inside. The marriage certificate was dated 3 years ago and bore 2 signatures. The first was Joseph Caldwell, her late employer. The second was a woman named Martha Hayes, who had been the Caldwell family cook. The certificate proved that when Joseph Caldwell died 6 months ago, leaving his considerable fortune to his son Thomas, he had actually been married to Martha at the time of his death, a marriage he had kept secret from everyone, including Thomas. Under the law, Martha was entitled to a widow's portion of the estate, but Martha had disappeared shortly after Joseph's death, and Rebecca, who had served as Joseph's secretary, had found the certificate hidden in his private papers. Before she could decide what to do with it, Thomas Caldwell had made it clear that he expected Rebecca to become his wife, despite the fact that she found him cruel and controlling. When Rebecca had refused, Thomas had turned vicious. He had threatened to ruin her reputation, to ensure she never found work in Philadelphia again. So Rebecca had done the only thing she could think of. She had taken the marriage certificate and run, hoping to find Martha Hayes and return what was rightfully hers, and hoping to disappear before Thomas could make good on his threats. Her search had led her to Tombstone, based on a single letter she had found among Martha's few belongings, a letter from a sister living in the Arizona Territory. Rebecca had no idea if Martha was actually here, but it was her only lead. A knock on the door made her jump. She quickly tucked the satchel under the pillow before opening the door to find a young Mexican woman with a pitcher of water and a basin. Mrs. Goodwin said you need water, señorita, the girl said shyly. Thank you, Rebecca said, taking the items. What is your name? Maria, señorita. Thank you, Maria. I appreciate your kindness. Maria smiled and hurried away. Rebecca poured the water into the basin and washed her face and hands, the cool water reviving her somewhat. She changed out of her traveling dress into a simpler cotton dress more suitable for the heat, then sat by the window and tried to plan her next steps. She needed to find Martha Hayes or Martha's sister. That meant asking questions, but she had to be careful. If Thomas had somehow tracked her to Tombstone, She could not afford to draw attention to herself. She would need to be subtle, discreet. As the afternoon faded into evening, Rebecca made her way downstairs for supper. The dining room held a long table where 7 people were already seated. Mrs. Goodwin introduced her to the other boarders. 2 school teachers named Miss Allen and Miss Porter, a clerk named Mr. Jameson, a surveyor named Mr. Cole, and an elderly couple, Mr. and Mrs. Wright. The meal was simple but delicious. Beef stew with fresh bread and butter. The conversation was polite and restrained, mostly about the heat and the latest news from town. Rebecca ate quietly, grateful to be left alone with her thoughts. After supper, she returned to her room, but sleep proved elusive. She lay in the narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of Tombstone at night. Somewhere in the distance, a piano played and men's voices rose in laughter. Closer by, a baby cried. The night air carried the smell of dust and sage. Rebecca thought about Benjamin Anders. She wondered why he had approached her at the train station, why he had been so perceptive about her secret. She wondered if she would see him again, and found herself hoping she would, even though she knew it was foolish to let anyone get close. The next morning, Rebecca woke early and dressed carefully. She needed to start her search for Martha Hayes, which meant exploring Tombstone and asking careful questions. After breakfast, a simple meal of eggs and toast, she ventured out into the already warming streets. Tombstone in daylight was a bustling, chaotic place. The main street, Allen Street, was lined with saloons, shops, and businesses. Signs advertised everything from dry goods to legal services to assay offices. Men on horseback trotted past, and women in bonnets hurried along the wooden sidewalks. Rebecca decided to start with the post office. If Martha's sister lived in Tombstone, perhaps there would be a record of her. The post office was a small building on Fremont Street, staffed by a thin man with spectacles who peered at Rebecca suspiciously when she approached his window. "Can I help you, miss?" "I hope so," Rebecca said, trying to sound casual. "I am looking for a woman named Martha Hayes, or possibly her sister. I was told they might live in Tombstone." The man shook his head. "Do not know anyone by that name, but we get a lot of people passing through. She might have come and gone. Is there anyone in town who might keep records of residents? A census taker or town clerk? You could try the courthouse, but we are still pretty informal out here, not like back east." Rebecca thanked him and left, feeling discouraged. The courthouse proved equally unhelpful. The clerk there, a harried-looking man with ink-stained fingers, suggested she try the churches, as ministers often kept records of their congregations. So Rebecca spent the rest of the morning visiting the 3 churches in Tombstone: a Methodist church, a Catholic church, and a small Presbyterian congregation. At each, she asked about Martha Hayes and her sister. None of the ministers recognized the names. By noon, Rebecca was hot, tired, and discouraged. She stopped at a small restaurant for lunch, spending precious coins on a plate of chicken and vegetables. As she ate, she tried to think of other approaches. Perhaps Martha had changed her name. Perhaps she had never come to Tombstone at all. "Mind if I join you?" Rebecca looked up to find Benjamin Anders standing beside her table, his hat in his hands. Despite her exhaustion, she felt her heart skip a beat. "This is a public establishment," she said, trying to sound indifferent. Benjamin grinned and sat down across from her. "You are a prickly one, Miss Stone. I like that. Too many people out here are either too trusting or too dishonest. You are cautious, which means you are smart." "What do you want, Mr. Anders?" "Ben," he corrected. "And I want to make sure you are settling in all right. Mrs. Goodwin treating you well. She is very kind." "Good." Benjamin ordered coffee from the waitress who appeared, then turned his attention back to Rebecca. I saw you going in and out of the churches this morning. Are you particularly devout or are you looking for something?" Rebecca's guard went up immediately. "Why were you watching me?" "I was not watching you specifically," Benjamin said mildly. "I had business in town, supplies to pick up for the ranch, but Tombstone is not that big and you stand out." "I do not want to stand out." "Then you should not be so beautiful." The words were said so simply, so matter-of-factly that Rebecca did not know how to respond. She felt heat rise to her cheeks and looked down at her plate. "I am sorry," Benjamin said quickly. "That was too forward. My mother would scold me for speaking so plainly to a lady, but it is the truth. You are going to get noticed in a town like this whether you want to or not." "I am just trying to find someone," Rebecca said, surprising herself with the admission. "A woman who might have come to Tombstone recently. Her name is Martha Hayes, or she might be using her sister's name." "Why are you looking for her?" Rebecca hesitated. Every instinct told her to keep her secrets close, but Benjamin's words from the day before echoed in her mind. "Secrets are safe with me." She did not know why, but she believed him. "I have something that belongs to her, something important. I need to return it." "What kind of important thing?" "I would rather not say, but it could change her life." Benjamin studied her for a long moment, his storm cloud eyes serious. "And you traveled all the way from wherever you came from to give this thing to a woman you do not seem to know very well. That is either very noble or very foolish." "Perhaps both," Rebecca admitted. "Does this have anything to do with why you are running?" "I am not running." "Yes, you are. I can see it in the way you watch the street, like you are expecting someone to come after you. In the way you keep checking over your shoulder. Someone scared you badly enough that you left everything behind." Rebecca's throat tightened. She wanted to deny it, but the words would not come. Instead, she found herself blinking back tears, which horrified her. She never cried, especially not in front of strangers. Benjamin reached across the table and gently covered her hand with his. His hand was rough, calloused from hard work, but his touch was gentle. "I meant what I said yesterday. Your secrets are safe with me, and if you need help finding this Martha Hayes, I know this territory better than most. I could ask around discreetly." "Why would you help me?" Rebecca asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Honestly, I am not entirely sure. But I look at you, and I see someone who is trying to do the right thing even though it is costing you dearly. That is rare out here. Most people are only looking out for themselves. I admire your integrity, Miss Stone, and I reckon you could use a friend." Rebecca looked down at his hand covering hers. She knew she should pull away, should maintain her distance. But the warmth of his touch, the sincerity in his voice, made her want to believe that maybe, just maybe, she did not have to face everything alone. "I would appreciate any help you could offer," she said finally. Benjamin smiled, that transforming smile that made her heart flutter. "Then we are partners. Tell me everything you know about Martha Hayes." Over the next hour, Rebecca told him what she could without revealing the full truth. She explained that Martha had worked for a family in Philadelphia, that she had left suddenly, and that Rebecca was trying to find her to return something of value. She mentioned the letter from Martha's sister, but admitted she did not know the sister's name. Benjamin listened carefully, occasionally asking questions. When Rebecca finished, he sat back and considered. "It is not much to go on, but I know some people who might be able to help. There is a woman named Rosa who runs a boarding house on the edge of town, caters mostly to Mexican and Chinese workers. She knows everyone and everything that happens in Tombstone. If a woman came to town looking for her sister, Rosa would probably know about it. Could you introduce me?" "I could, but Rosa is more likely to talk if I ask the questions. She does not trust strangers easily. Let me go see her this afternoon. Where can I find you later?" "I will be at the boarding house." I will come by around 5 if that is all right. We can walk somewhere and talk. Unless you would rather, I came inside and spoke with you there. A walk would be fine, Rebecca said quickly. The last thing she wanted was the other boarders speculating about her relationship with Benjamin Anders. They finished their lunch, and Benjamin insisted on paying for Rebecca's meal despite her protests. "Consider it an investment in our partnership," he said with a wink. As they stepped out into the bright afternoon sunlight, Benjamin paused and looked down at her. "Rebecca, I need you to understand something. If you are in real trouble, if someone dangerous is looking for you, I need to know. I can help, but only if I understand what we are facing." Rebecca wanted to tell him everything. About Thomas Caldwell and his threats, about the marriage certificate, about her fear that Thomas might have hired men to track her down. But the words stuck in her throat. She barely knew Benjamin Anders. What if she was wrong to trust him? "No one knows I am here," she said instead. "I was careful." Benjamin did not look convinced, but he nodded. "All right. But if that changes, you tell me immediately." "Agreed." "Agreed." He touched his hat and strode off down the street, leaving Rebecca standing on the sidewalk, her emotions in turmoil. She barely knew this man, yet he was already becoming important to her in a way that frightened her. She had learned the hard way that depending on others led to disappointment and pain. Yet something about Benjamin made her want to take the risk. Rebecca spent the afternoon in her room, trying to read a book she had brought from Philadelphia, but her mind kept wandering to Benjamin. At precisely 5 o'clock, there was a knock on the boarding house door, and Maria came to tell her she had a visitor. Benjamin was waiting in the parlor, looking freshly washed and wearing a clean shirt. He had shaved since lunch, and Rebecca found herself noticing the strong line of his jaw, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled at her. "Ready for that walk?" he asked. They set out into the cooling evening air. The sun was lowering toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Benjamin led her away from the busy main street toward a quieter area where houses gave way to open desert. "I spoke with Rosa," he said as they walked. She remembered a woman who came to town about 3 months ago, looking for work. Mexican woman, middle-aged, went by the name Marta, not Martha. Rosa said she stayed at the boarding house for about 2 weeks, then left with a family heading to California. Rebecca's heart sank. "California? Are you sure?" "That is what Rosa said. The woman was looking for her sister, but the sister had apparently moved to California a year before. Rosa said the woman seemed disappointed but determined. She took a job as a cook with a family making the journey west." "Then I am too late," Rebecca said, unable to keep the despair from her voice. "Maybe, maybe not. Rosa said the woman mentioned her sister lived in San Diego. If you are determined to find her, you could go there." "I do not have money for another journey like that," Rebecca said, the reality of her situation crashing down on her. "I barely have enough to last a month here." "Then stay in Tombstone," Benjamin said. "Find work, save up. In 6 months or a year you will have enough to continue your search." "A year," Rebecca repeated. It seemed like an eternity. What if Martha needed the information she carried? What if Thomas found her before she could complete her mission? They walked in silence for a while, following a path that wound between scrub brush and cacti. The desert was beautiful in its stark way, so different from the green hills of Pennsylvania. "Can I ask you something personal?" Benjamin said finally. "You can ask. I might not answer." "Fair enough. This thing you are trying to return to Martha Hayes, is it worth risking your life for?" Rebecca thought about the marriage certificate, about the money and property Martha was entitled to, about the justice of the situation. "Yes," she said firmly. "It is worth it. Then I will help you however I can. If you need work, I can speak to some of the shop owners in town." Or if you would rather, the ranch can always use help. My sister-in-law Charlotte is often overwhelmed with the household tasks. She would appreciate having another woman around. Your brother is married with 2 children and another on the way. They live at the ranch with me. It is a big enough house that we do not get in each other's way too much. He grinned. Most of the time, anyway. I would not want to impose on your family. It would not be an imposition. Charlotte would be thrilled. She gets lonely out there with just the children and ranch hands for company. And it would give you a respectable position while you save money. Rebecca considered the offer. Working at her ranch would take her out of town, make her less visible if Thomas did send someone to look for her. And if she was honest with herself, the prospect of seeing Benjamin regularly was more appealing than it should be. What would my duties be? She asked. Helping with cooking, cleaning, mending. Charlotte also teaches the children their lessons, and she could use assistance with that. Nothing too strenuous. We would provide room and board plus a small wage. It is not much, but it is honest work. When would you need me to start? Whenever you are ready. Tomorrow, if you like. I can take you out to the ranch, introduce you to everyone. If it does not feel right, no hard feelings. But I think you would like Charlotte. She is from Boston originally, came west with my brother 5 years ago. She understands what it is like to be far from home. Rebecca made her decision. Tomorrow, then, I will tell Mrs. Goodwin tonight. Benjamin's face lit up with pleasure. That is wonderful. I will come by at 8 tomorrow morning with the wagon. They turned back toward town, the conversation shifting to lighter topics. Benjamin told her about the ranch, about the cattle and horses they raised, about the challenges of building something permanent in such a wild, unpredictable place. Rebecca found herself relaxing, even laughing at his stories about stubborn cattle and mishaps with the other ranch hands. By the time they reached the boarding house, the stars were beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. Benjamin walked her to the porch, then paused, looking down at her with an expression she could not quite read. I am glad you came to Tombstone, Rebecca Stone, he said softly. Even if the circumstances are not what you would have chosen, I think maybe you were meant to be here. Why would you think that? Rebecca asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because I have been praying for something to shake up my life, to give me a reason to feel hopeful again. And then you stepped off that train, looking lost and scared and brave all at once, and I thought maybe God was answering my prayer in an unexpected way. Rebecca did not know what to say to that. She had never thought of herself as an answer to anyone's prayer. Before she could respond, Benjamin touched his hat and stepped back. 8 o'clock tomorrow, he reminded her. Sleep well, Rebecca. She watched him walk away, disappearing into the gathering darkness. Her heart was beating too fast and her palms were damp. Whatever she had expected when she came to Tombstone, it was not this. It was not Benjamin Anders with his kind eyes and his gentle words and his uncanny ability to see right through her defenses. That night, Rebecca lay in bed with the satchel beside her, thinking about the future. For the first time since leaving Philadelphia, she felt a small spark of hope. Maybe she could make a life here, at least for a while. Maybe she could save enough money to eventually find Martha. And maybe, just maybe, she could allow herself to trust Benjamin, to let him help her carry the burden of her secret. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Rebecca packed her few belongings and explained to Mrs. Goodwin that she had found employment at her ranch. Mrs. Goodwin was understanding, returning part of the week's rent, and wished her well. At exactly 8 o'clock, Benjamin arrived with a sturdy wagon pulled by 2 horses. He helped Rebecca load her trunk and then handed her up onto the bench seat beside him. The ride out to the ranch took about 45 minutes, following a well-worn road that led into the rolling hills surrounding Tombstone. The Anders Ranch was more impressive than Rebecca had expected. The main house was a sprawling adobe structure with a wide porch wrapped around three sides. Outbuildings included a large barn, a bunkhouse, corrals, and several storage sheds. Cattle grazed on the hills beyond, and she could see horses in a nearby pasture. A man emerged from the barn as they approached. He was slightly older than Benjamin, perhaps 30, with the same blue-gray eyes but darker hair. A woman followed behind him, visibly pregnant, with honey-colored hair pulled back in a braid and a warm smile on her face. "Rebecca, this is my brother Bartholomew, though everyone calls him Bart, and his wife Charlotte," Benjamin said, helping her down from the wagon. "Welcome to the ranch," Charlotte said immediately, reaching out to clasp Rebecca's hands. "Ben told us you were coming, and I am so delighted to have another woman around. It gets terribly lonely out here sometimes." Bart gave her a friendly nod. "Any friend of Ben's is welcome here. He said you were looking for work." "Yes, sir. I have experience with household management and teaching. I was a secretary in Philadelphia before I came west." "A secretary?" Charlotte's eyes widened. "My goodness, you are overqualified for ranch work, but I am certainly not going to turn down skilled help. Come inside and I will show you where you will be staying." The interior of the house was comfortable and well kept. Charlotte led Rebecca to a small room off the kitchen, simply furnished with a bed, dresser, and washstand. "It is not fancy, but it is private," Charlotte said. "The children's rooms are upstairs. Samuel is 6 and Emily is 4. They can be a handful, but they are good children. I try to teach them their letters and numbers every morning, but with the new baby coming, I have been so tired lately." "I would be happy to help with their lessons," Rebecca assured her. Over the next few days, Rebecca settled into ranch life. She rose early to help Charlotte prepare breakfast for the family and the ranch hands, then spent the morning teaching Samuel and Emily. The children were bright and curious, and Rebecca found she enjoyed working with them. In the afternoons, she helped with mending, cleaning, and preparing supper. The work was hard but satisfying in a way her position in Philadelphia had never been. There was something honest about the labor, something real, and she was surrounded by warmth and kindness. Charlotte was as friendly as she had first seemed, full of stories and laughter. Bart was quieter but steady and reliable. The children quickly grew fond of Rebecca, following her around and asking endless questions. And then there was Benjamin. He was always nearby, it seemed, finding reasons to come to the house during the day. He would appear in the kitchen looking for coffee, or in the yard where Rebecca was hanging laundry, or in the barn where she sometimes went to escape the afternoon heat. They would talk about everything and nothing, their conversations ranging from philosophy to horses to their childhoods. Rebecca learned that Benjamin and Bart had grown up in Texas, that their parents had died in a fever outbreak when Benjamin was 18. The brothers had drifted west, working odd jobs, until they had saved enough to buy land and start the ranch. "It is not much yet," Benjamin told her one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "But we are building something real. In 10 years, I want the Anders Ranch to be known throughout the territory as a place of quality livestock and honest dealing." "You will do it," Rebecca said with conviction. In the weeks since she had arrived, she had seen how hard Benjamin and Bart worked, how dedicated they were to their vision. "I hope so. I want to have something to offer a wife someday, something stable and permanent." The comment hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Rebecca's heart raced, but she forced herself to speak lightly. "I am sure you will have no trouble finding a wife. You are a good man, Benjamin Anders." He turned to look at her, his eyes intense in the fading light. "And you, Rebecca Stone, what do you want for your future?" The question pierced her heart. What did she want? For so long, her only goal had been survival, escaping Thomas, finding Martha. But sitting here on this porch with Benjamin beside her and the vast Arizona sky stretching overhead, she found herself wanting something different. She wanted this peace, this sense of belonging, this feeling of home. "I do not know any more," she admitted. "I thought I knew, but everything has changed." "Changed how?" She looked at him, at his honest face and kind eyes, and felt the walls around her heart beginning to crumble. "I came to Tombstone expecting to stay only long enough to accomplish my mission, but now I find myself wanting to stay." "Is that foolish?" "Not foolish at all," Benjamin said softly. He reached over and took her hand, his rough fingers intertwining with hers. "I was hoping you would say that." They sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped, until Charlotte called them in for supper. As Rebecca stood to go inside, Benjamin held onto her hand for a moment longer. "Rebecca, I know you are still carrying secrets. I can see them weighing on you. Whenever you are ready to share them, I will be here to listen. And whatever they are, they will not change how I feel about you." "And how do you feel about me?" Rebecca whispered, hardly daring to ask. Benjamin stood, still holding her hand, and looked down at her with an expression that made her breath catch. "I think you know. I have been falling for you since the moment you stepped off that train, all fierce independence and hidden fear. You have worked your way into my heart, Rebecca Stone, and I am not sorry about it." Before Rebecca could respond, he lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently, then released her and strode off toward the barn, leaving her trembling on the porch. That night, lying in her small room, Rebecca faced the truth she had been avoiding. She was falling in love with Benjamin Anders. Despite all her resolutions to keep her distance, despite her fear of being hurt again, despite the secrets she still carried, her heart was opening to him in a way that both thrilled and terrified her. She thought about the marriage certificate hidden in her satchel. She had not looked at it in weeks, had almost forgotten about Martha Hayes in the gentle rhythm of ranch life. But the document was still there, still her responsibility. And Thomas Caldwell was still out there somewhere, possibly looking for her. Rebecca knew she needed to tell Benjamin the truth. He deserved to know what he might be getting involved in. But every time she thought about revealing everything, fear choked the words in her throat. What if the truth drove him away? What if knowing about Thomas put Benjamin and his family in danger? The days turned into weeks. September arrived, bringing slightly cooler temperatures and the first hints of autumn. Charlotte's pregnancy advanced, and Rebecca took on more of the household duties, allowing Charlotte to rest more. Samuel and Emily flourished under Rebecca's teaching, mastering their letters and beginning to read simple books, and Rebecca's relationship with Benjamin deepened. They spent every spare moment together, talking, laughing, learning each other's thoughts and dreams. Benjamin was unlike any man Rebecca had known before. He was strong but gentle, confident but humble. He listened when she spoke and valued her opinions. He made her feel safe and cherished. One Sunday afternoon, Benjamin asked if she would like to go riding. Bart agreed to watch the children, and Charlotte encouraged Rebecca to take the time away. Benjamin saddled 2 horses, and they rode out into the hills, following a trail that led to a high overlook. From the top, they could see for miles. The desert stretched out below them, golden in the afternoon sun, with Tombstone visible in the distance. Benjamin helped Rebecca dismount and led her to a flat rock where they could sit and enjoy the view. "I used to come here when I first arrived in Arizona," Benjamin said. "When things felt overwhelming, when I questioned whether we had made a mistake coming west, I would ride up here and look at all this space and possibility, and it would remind me why we came. Out here, a man can be anything he has the courage to be." "And a woman?" Rebecca asked. "A woman too." The frontier does not care about your past or your family name or what society thinks you should be. Out here, you can start fresh. Rebecca thought about that. Do you really believe that? That we can escape our pasts? Benjamin was quiet for a moment. I think our pasts shape us, but they do not have to define us. We can choose to learn from them and move forward, or we can let them trap us. The choice is ours. What if your past involves mistakes that hurt other people? Can you really start fresh then? Rebecca, Benjamin said gently, turning to face her. Whatever you did or did not do before you came to Tombstone, I know the woman you are now. And the woman you are now is kind, brave, intelligent, and fiercely loyal. That is all that matters to me. Tears pricked Rebecca's eyes. You do not know everything. Then tell me, please. Let me help carry whatever burden you are shouldering. And so, sitting on that rock overlooking the vast Arizona landscape, Rebecca finally told Benjamin everything. She told him about Joseph Caldwell and his secret marriage to Martha. She told him about finding the certificate, and about Thomas Caldwell's threats and his insistence that she marry him. She told him about her flight from Philadelphia, and her mission to find Martha and return what was rightfully hers. Benjamin listened without interrupting, his face serious. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment, processing everything she had revealed. So you have a legal document that proves Thomas Caldwell's inheritance is not fully valid, he said finally. And you fled rather than be forced into marriage. Rebecca, you did nothing wrong. You were protecting yourself and trying to do right by Martha Hayes. But I stole the certificate. Legally, it belonged to Thomas as part of his father's papers. Legally, it belonged to Martha Hayes, proof of her marriage. You were returning stolen property, not stealing it. There is a difference. Thomas may not see it that way. He might have hired men to find me to bring me back. Benjamin's jaw tightened. Let him try. He will have to go through me first. Ben, I do not want you or your family in danger because of me. We are not in danger. Rebecca, do you really think this Thomas Caldwell is going to send men all the way to Arizona to track down one woman over a marriage certificate? He has no idea where you are, and even if he did figure it out somehow, by the time anyone could get here, months would have passed. He has probably given up and moved on. You do not know him. He is vindictive and controlling. When people defy him, he makes them pay. Then he has never dealt with someone like me. Benjamin took both of Rebecca's hands in his. Listen to me. You are not alone anymore. You have me and Bart and Charlotte. You have a home here if you want it. Stop running. Stop looking over your shoulder. Build a life here. With you, Rebecca whispered. If you will have me. I know we have not known each other long, but I am certain of my feelings. I love you, Rebecca Stone. I want to marry you, build a future with you. I want to wake up beside you every morning for the rest of my life. Rebecca's heart felt like it might burst from her chest. I love you too. I tried to keep my distance, but I could not help it. You are the best man I have ever known. Benjamin cupped her face in his hands and kissed her, a gentle kiss that held all the promise of the future. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. Is that a yes? Benjamin asked, his eyes dancing with hope and joy. Yes, Rebecca said, laughing through happy tears. Yes, I will marry you. They rode back to the ranch in a state of euphoric happiness. Charlotte took one look at their faces and started crying happy tears herself. Bart clapped Benjamin on the back and welcomed Rebecca officially into the family. Even the children seemed to sense that something wonderful had happened, dancing around excitedly. That evening, as the family gathered for supper, Benjamin formally announced their engagement. We will marry as soon as possible, he said. No point in waiting when you are sure. October would be lovely, Charlotte suggested. The weather will be perfect, not too hot. We can have the ceremony at the ranch, invite everyone from town. Over the next week, plans for the wedding took shape. Charlotte insisted on making Rebecca a dress despite her advancing pregnancy. They settled on a date 3 weeks away, giving them time to prepare but not so long that the waiting would be unbearable. Rebecca wrote a letter to an old friend in Philadelphia, Mrs. Harriet Morgan, her former landlady. She told Mrs. Morgan about her engagement and asked her to quietly inquire whether Thomas Caldwell was still looking for her. She did not expect a response for at least a month, given the speed of mail service, but it would ease her mind to know for certain. The days flew by in a flurry of preparation. Charlotte taught Rebecca to make tortillas and other Western dishes. Bart and Benjamin worked on finishing a new room they had been adding to the house, intended as a private space for Benjamin and Rebecca after the wedding. The children helped Rebecca pick wildflowers to dry for decorations. Benjamin spent every available moment with Rebecca, stealing kisses in the barn, holding her hand under the supper table, planning their future together. He spoke of expanding the ranch, of building a larger house someday, of the children they would have. Rebecca had never felt so loved, so secure in another person's feelings. 2 weeks before the wedding, a letter arrived from Philadelphia. Rebecca's hands shook as she opened it, dreading what it might contain. But Mrs. Morgan's news was reassuring. Thomas Caldwell had apparently told everyone that Rebecca had suffered a nervous breakdown and had gone to stay with relatives in the country. He had shown no signs of searching for her and had, in fact, recently announced his engagement to another woman, a young heiress from New York. Relief flooded through Rebecca. Thomas had moved on, found another woman to control and manipulate. She felt sorry for his new fiancée but grateful to be free of his attention. She showed the letter to Benjamin, who pulled her into his arms. "It is over," he murmured into her hair. "You are truly free now. You can stop looking over your shoulder." "I have one more thing I need to do," Rebecca said. "I need to send the marriage certificate to Martha Hayes in San Diego. I need to finish what I started. Then we will do it together. After the wedding, we will send it with a letter explaining everything. Martha can decide what she wants to do with the information." The night before the wedding, Charlotte insisted on giving Rebecca a pre-wedding talk about marriage and what to expect. Rebecca appreciated her kindness but found herself more amused than nervous. Charlotte was so earnest, so determined to make sure Rebecca was prepared. "Ben is a good man," Charlotte said as she helped Rebecca try on her wedding dress one last time to check the fit. "The best of men, truly. He will take care of you and cherish you, but marriage is also work. There will be hard times along with the good times. The key is to face everything together, to keep talking even when it is difficult." "I will remember that," Rebecca promised. "And do not be afraid to tell him when he is being stubborn or pig-headed. The Anders men sometimes need a firm hand to keep them in line." Charlotte winked, and both women laughed. The wedding day dawned clear and perfect, the October sky a brilliant blue. Friends and neighbors from Tombstone and the surrounding ranches began arriving in the late morning. Rosa, the boarding house owner Benjamin had consulted about Martha, came with her extended family. Mrs. Goodwin arrived with Miss Allen and Miss Porter. Even the Earp brothers stopped by to offer congratulations. Rebecca stood in her room, wearing the cream-colored dress Charlotte had made for her. It was simple but beautiful, with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. Charlotte had woven wildflowers into Rebecca's hair, creating a crown of gold and purple blooms. "You look like a princess," Emily declared, bouncing excitedly. "You look beautiful," Charlotte said, her eyes misty. "Ben is a lucky man." A knock on the door announced Bart's arrival. "Everyone is ready," he said. "Rebecca, may I have the honor of giving you away?" Tears pricked Rebecca's eyes at the kindness. "I would be honored." They walked together from the house to the area where chairs had been arranged in neat rows. Benjamin stood under an arch the ranch hands had built and decorated with branches and flowers. He wore a new shirt and vest, his hair neatly combed, his face shining with joy and anticipation. The ceremony was performed by the Presbyterian minister from Tombstone. As Rebecca walked toward Benjamin on Bart's arm, her eyes locked on the man she loved, she felt a sense of rightness settle over her. This was where she was meant to be. This was home. Benjamin's hands were steady as he took hers. His voice was strong and sure as he spoke his vows, promising to love, honor, and cherish her all the days of his life. When it came time for Rebecca to speak her vows, her voice caught with emotion, but she managed to speak clearly. "I promise to love you, Benjamin Anders, in sickness and health, in good times and bad, for as long as we both shall live. You have shown me what true love means, and I will spend the rest of my life proving myself worthy of your faith in me." "You already have," Benjamin whispered as he slipped a simple gold band onto her finger. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. "Ben, you may kiss your bride." And Benjamin did, thoroughly and enthusiastically, to the cheers and applause of everyone gathered. The celebration that followed lasted well into the evening. Long tables had been set up in the yard, groaning with food prepared by Charlotte and the ranch women. There was music and dancing, laughter and toasts. Rebecca danced with her new husband under the stars, held secure in his strong arms, marveling at how much her life had changed in just a few short months. "Happy?" Benjamin asked, his breath warm against her ear as they swayed to the music. "More than I knew was possible," Rebecca answered honestly. "I was so lost when I stepped off that train in Tombstone. I never imagined I would find you. God works in mysterious ways. You came here looking for Martha Hayes, but maybe you were really looking for a home, for love. For me, I found all of that and more." Later, after the guests had departed and the children had been tucked into bed, Benjamin led Rebecca to their new room. He closed the door and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that made her knees weak. "I have been dreaming of this moment for weeks," he admitted. "Having you all to myself, my beautiful wife." That night, Rebecca learned what it meant to be truly cherished, to be loved completely by a good man. Benjamin was gentle and patient, making sure her first experience was filled with tenderness rather than fear. They talked and laughed and explored this new intimacy together, creating memories that Rebecca knew she would treasure forever. In the days and weeks that followed, Rebecca settled fully into her role as Benjamin's wife and a member of the Anders family. The marriage certificate and a carefully worded letter were sent to Martha Hayes in San Diego, explaining everything and offering to testify on Martha's behalf if she chose to pursue her legal claim against the Caldwell estate. Rebecca felt a weight lift from her shoulders once the package was sent. She had fulfilled her obligation and could now fully embrace her new life. Charlotte gave birth to a healthy baby boy in early November. They named him Joshua, and Rebecca helped care for him along with Samuel and Emily. She discovered she loved being an aunt, loved the chaos and joy of children in the house. As winter approached, Rebecca and Benjamin grew even closer. They worked side by side during the day and fell into each other's arms at night. They talked about everything, sharing their thoughts and dreams and fears. They laughed often and supported each other through challenges. One evening in December, as they sat together by the fireplace, Benjamin suddenly said, "I have been thinking about expanding the ranch. If we buy the Miller property adjacent to ours, we would double our grazing land. It would mean taking on more debt, but I think it is worth it. What do you think?" Rebecca appreciated that he asked her opinion, that he valued her thoughts on important decisions. The Miller property has good water access, right? And there is that sheltered valley that would be perfect for winter grazing. You have been paying attention, Benjamin said with approval. Of course I have. This is my home now, our future. I want to understand every aspect of it. They discussed the pros and cons for over an hour before deciding to pursue the purchase. True to his word, Benjamin treated Rebecca as a full partner in all ranch decisions. Her organizational skills and attention to detail proved invaluable in managing the business side of the operation. In January, Rebecca discovered she was pregnant. The news filled both her and Benjamin with joy. He immediately became even more protective, insisting she not overwork herself, making sure she ate enough and rested when tired. "I am not fragile," Rebecca protested one evening when he would not let her help carry water. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time." "Not my woman carrying my baby," Benjamin said stubbornly. "You are precious to me, Rebecca. Let me take care of you." How could she argue with that? So she allowed him to pamper her, even as she continued to help with household tasks and teaching the children. Charlotte was thrilled at the prospect of another baby in the house. "Our children will grow up together like siblings," she said happily. What a wonderful blessing. Spring arrived, bringing new life to the ranch. Calves and foals filled the pastures. The garden burst into bloom, and Rebecca's pregnancy advanced, her belly growing round with their child. In April, a letter arrived from Martha Hayes. She had received the marriage certificate and was deeply grateful to Rebecca for tracking her down and returning it. She had decided not to pursue legal action against Thomas Caldwell, as she wanted to avoid the publicity and scandal. However, she had shown the certificate to a lawyer, and Thomas had agreed to a private settlement to keep the information quiet. Martha now had enough money to open her own boarding house in San Diego and was living comfortably. "She did well," Martha wrote. "Thank you for your courage in bringing this to me. I hope you have found happiness in your new life. You certainly deserve it." Rebecca showed the letter to Benjamin, feeling a sense of completion. "It is truly over now," she said. "Martha has her justice and we have our life." "A beautiful life," Benjamin agreed, his hand resting on her swollen belly. "And about to get even better." In late August, Rebecca went into labor on a hot afternoon. Charlotte sent one of the ranch hands to fetch the midwife from Tombstone while she stayed with Rebecca, coaching her through the contractions. Benjamin paced outside the room, worry etched on his face. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next day. But finally, as the sun rose over the Arizona desert, Rebecca gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Matthew Joseph, and Benjamin cried when he held his son for the first time. "He is perfect," Benjamin whispered, staring down at the tiny red-faced infant. "Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for this gift." "I think we made him together," Rebecca said with an exhausted smile. Over the next few years, the Anders family continued to grow and prosper. The ranch expanded, becoming known throughout the territory for quality horses and cattle. Benjamin and Bart hired more ranch hands and built a larger bunkhouse to accommodate them. Rebecca and Benjamin had 2 more children, a daughter they named Sarah, and another son they named Daniel. Their home was filled with laughter and love, with the chaos of children and the steady rhythm of ranch life. Charlotte and Bart's family also grew, adding 2 more children. The cousins played together constantly, creating their own adventures in the hills and valleys surrounding the ranch. On quiet evenings, when the children were asleep and the work was done, Rebecca and Benjamin would sit together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. They would hold hands and talk about their day, about their children, about their dreams for the future. "Do you ever miss Philadelphia?" Benjamin asked one such evening 5 years after their wedding. Rebecca thought about the question seriously. She missed some things, small things. The symphony concerts, the library, the cobblestone streets. But those were surface things, not the substance of life. "No," she said finally. "This is my home. You are my home. I have everything I need right here. Even though your life is harder than it would have been in Philadelphia, even though you work harder and have fewer luxuries. Especially because of those things. This life is real, Benjamin. The work we do matters. The family we are raising matters. The love we share matters. In Philadelphia, I was going through the motions, living a life that looked proper on the surface but felt hollow inside. Here, everything is authentic. Everything means something." Benjamin pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. "I am so grateful you stepped off that train in Tombstone. I am so grateful you trusted me with your secrets. I cannot imagine my life without you." "And I cannot imagine mine without you," Rebecca replied. "You taught me what love really is, what home really means." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. Inside the house, they could hear the children stirring, calling for their parents. But for just this moment, they stayed where they were, savoring the peace and contentment of their life together. Rebecca thought back to that day in August 1881, when she had arrived in Tombstone, scared and alone, carrying a secret that felt like it might crush her. She had expected to stay only briefly, to complete her mission and move on. But fate and Benjamin Anders had other plans. She had found so much more than she ever sought. She had found purpose and belonging. She had found family and community. She had found a love deeper and more true than anything she had imagined possible. And she had found herself, the woman she was meant to be, strong and capable and loved. The years continued to pass, bringing both joys and challenges. There were harsh winters and long droughts. There were illnesses and accidents, losses and disappointments. But through it all, Rebecca and Benjamin faced everything together, their love growing stronger with each passing year. Their children grew tall and strong, each developing their own personalities and dreams. Matthew proved to have his father's gift with horses, spending every spare moment in the stables. Sarah had her mother's quick mind and love of learning, devouring every book they could acquire. Daniel was the adventurer, always exploring, always asking questions. As the children grew, Rebecca took on a larger role in the ranch's business operations. Her education and organizational skills proved invaluable as they expanded into new ventures. She managed the accounts, negotiated contracts, and even traveled to Tucson and Phoenix on occasion to meet with buyers. Benjamin was endlessly proud of his capable, intelligent wife. He never resented her competence or tried to diminish her contributions. Instead, he celebrated them, telling anyone who would listen how lucky he was to have a true partner in all things. In 1891, on their 10th wedding anniversary, Benjamin surprised Rebecca with a trip to San Francisco. They left the children in Charlotte's capable care and took the train west, spending 2 glorious weeks exploring the city, eating in fine restaurants, attending the theater, and simply enjoying each other's company without the demands of ranch life. On their last evening in San Francisco, they walked along the waterfront, watching ships coming and going from the harbor. The salty breeze ruffled Rebecca's hair, now touched with a few strands of silver. Benjamin's face had aged too, lined by sun and wind, but to Rebecca, he was more handsome than ever. "You remember what I told you the day we met?" Benjamin asked suddenly. "You said many things that day," Rebecca said with a smile. "Which particular thing do you mean?" I said that secrets were safe with me, that I could see you were carrying something heavy, and I wanted to help you carry it. I remember. Those words changed my life. They gave me the courage to trust you, to tell you the truth about why I was really in Tombstone. I am glad I said them then. And I want you to know they are still true. Whatever burdens you carry, whatever worries or fears or dreams, you can share them with me. Always. Rebecca stopped walking and turned to face her husband, placing her hands on his chest. I know that, Benjamin, and it is the same for you. We are partners in all things, equal and united. That is the foundation of our marriage, our love. We face everything together. Everything together, Benjamin agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss. They returned to the ranch refreshed and reconnected, ready to face whatever the future held. And the future, as it turned out, held many blessings. The ranch continued to prosper. New markets opened up as the railroad expanded, making it easier to ship their cattle and horses to distant buyers. They eventually bought 2 more adjacent properties, creating one of the largest ranches in the territory. When Arizona achieved statehood in 1912, Benjamin was invited to attend the ceremonies in Phoenix as a representative of the ranching community. Rebecca accompanied him, and they watched with pride as the Arizona flag was raised for the first time. "We helped build this," Benjamin said, his voice thick with emotion. "We were here when it was still wild and lawless. We helped turn it into something permanent, something that will last." Their children grew into fine adults. Matthew took over more of the day-to-day ranch operations, allowing Benjamin to slow down a bit as he aged. Sarah married a lawyer from Tucson, a good man who appreciated her intelligence and spirit. Daniel went east to study engineering, though he promised to return to Arizona eventually. Rebecca and Benjamin became grandparents, delighting in the next generation. They taught their grandchildren the same values they had instilled in their own children: hard work, honesty, kindness, and the importance of family. On their 25th wedding anniversary, the family threw a grand celebration at the ranch. Friends and neighbors came from miles around to honor the couple who had become pillars of their community. There were speeches and toasts, music and dancing, laughter and joy. As Rebecca looked around at all the faces, at the family and friends they had gathered over the years, at the life they had built together, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This was what she had been searching for when she fled Philadelphia all those years ago, even though she had not known it at the time. This sense of belonging, of being loved and valued, of being home. Benjamin found her standing alone on the porch, taking a moment away from the party. He slipped his arm around her waist and pulled her close. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how blessed I am. About how everything that seemed like a disaster at the time led me exactly where I needed to be. If Thomas had not threatened me, I never would have left Philadelphia. If I had not been looking for Martha, I never would have come to Tombstone. If I had not come to Tombstone, I never would have met you." "So you are saying you are grateful to Thomas Caldwell," Benjamin teased. "In a strange way, perhaps I am. His cruelty pushed me toward something infinitely better, though I would never want to thank him personally." "I heard he died several years ago," Benjamin said. "Bart got a letter from someone back east who knew of our connection to you." Apparently, Thomas gambled away most of the family fortune before he passed. His wife left him, and he died alone and bitter. Rebecca felt a twinge of pity, but nothing more. Thomas had made his own choices, created his own misery. She had moved on long ago. "And Martha?" Rebecca asked. "Have you heard any news of her recently?" "The last I heard, her boarding house in San Diego was doing very well. She married a few years back, a widower with 2 grown children. She is apparently very happy." "I am glad. She deserved some happiness after all she went through." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching their family and friends celebrate inside. The sound of laughter and music drifted through the open windows. Children ran past them, chasing each other around the porch. "We made a good life, Rebecca," Benjamin said softly. "The best life." "We did indeed," she agreed. As the years continued to pass, Rebecca and Benjamin gradually stepped back from active management of the ranch, allowing Matthew and his growing family to take the lead. They spent their days enjoying each other's company, riding out to favorite spots on the property, tending a garden and spoiling their grandchildren. They had been married for 35 years when Benjamin's health began to decline. The doctor diagnosed a weak heart and cautioned him to rest more. Benjamin, stubborn as ever, insisted on still doing light work around the ranch, unable to fully give up the life he had built. One evening in early autumn, as they sat together watching yet another spectacular Arizona sunset, Benjamin took Rebecca's hand and said, "If anything happens to me, I want you to know that loving you has been the greatest joy of my life. You made everything worthwhile." "Nothing is going to happen to you," Rebecca said firmly, though fear clutched at her heart. "You are too stubborn to leave me." "We all leave eventually," Benjamin said gently. "But whenever that day comes, I want you to promise me something, anything. Promise me you will not spend the rest of your life grieving. I want you to keep living, keep finding joy. You have so much life left in you, Rebecca. Do not waste it in sadness." "How can I not be sad without you? You are everything to me. And you will always have me in your memories, in our children and grandchildren, in the life we built together. But you will also have yourself, the strong, capable woman I fell in love with. Promise me you will honor that woman by living fully." Tears streamed down Rebecca's face. "I promise." "But you have to promise me something too. Promise me you will fight to stay with me as long as you can. I am not ready to say goodbye." "I promise. I will stay as long as I am able." Benjamin kept his promise. He lived for another 5 years, long enough to see Daniel return from the East and settle in Phoenix, long enough to meet 2 more great-grandchildren, long enough to celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary surrounded by 4 generations of family. He passed peacefully in his sleep on a spring morning, the sun streaming through the bedroom window, Rebecca's hand clasped in his. She knew the moment he left, felt the change in the air, the profound absence where his vibrant spirit had been. The grief was crushing, overwhelming. Despite Benjamin's words, despite her promise, Rebecca struggled to find reason to keep going. The world seemed colorless without him, every joy dimmed by his absence. But slowly, with the support of her family and the passage of time, Rebecca began to heal. She discovered that Benjamin had been right. She did carry him with her, in everything she did. She saw him in Matthew's kindness, in Sarah's intelligence, in Daniel's sense of adventure. She felt him in the wind that swept across the ranch, in the beauty of the desert sunset, in the solid foundation of the life they had built together. Rebecca lived for another 12 years after Benjamin's death, remaining active and engaged with her family and community until the very end. She never remarried, never even considered it. Benjamin had been the love of her life, her soulmate, and no one could ever replace him. When she finally passed at the age of 73, surrounded by children and grandchildren, her last words were, "Tell Benjamin I kept my promise. Tell him I lived." She was buried beside Benjamin on a hill overlooking the ranch, under a cottonwood tree they had planted together 40 years earlier. The headstones were simple, marked only with their names and dates and a single inscription, "Together in life and death." The Anders Ranch continued to thrive under Matthew's leadership and eventually passed to his children and grandchildren. The family remained in Arizona, generation after generation, always remembering the story of how it all began. How Rebecca stepped off a train in Tombstone carrying a secret that weighed heavy on her heart, and how Benjamin whispered that secrets were safe with him, and how that moment of trust and kindness blossomed into a love that changed everything. Years later, when Rebecca and Benjamin's great-great-grandchildren walked the land their ancestors had claimed and built, they would stop by the two graves under the cottonwood tree and tell the story once more. The story of courage and love, of second chances and new beginnings, of how two people found each other in the wild, untamed Arizona territory and created something that would last forever. It was a story that never grew old, a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things in life come from the most unexpected moments, and that love, real love, can transform everything. It was a story of the Wild West, but more than that, it was a story of the human heart, of its capacity for hope and healing and enduring devotion. And so the legacy lived on, not just in the land and the cattle and the prosperity the ranch provided, but in the example of a love that refused to be diminished by time or hardship or even death itself. Rebecca and Benjamin's story became part of the fabric of Arizona history, whispered by couples standing at the altar, remembered by families gathering around dinner tables, treasured by anyone who believed that true love was worth fighting for, worth trusting in, worth building a life around. In the end, Rebecca had found everything she never knew she was searching for. She had found home. She had found purpose. She had found family. But most importantly, she had found love, pure and true and lasting, and that love had made all the difference.